Every program takes on the personality of its head coach. And now we see Brian Kelly in what people still consider kind of an odd fit. Now it's becoming more comfortable for all of us. Brian Kelly at LSU. And I'm not asking this in the way that I would ask a Rutgers media person or a Kansas State media person, because they've got a lot of hoops to jump through to try to sell the program, because LSU sells itself. But still, you're fighting the best in the business. How is Brian Kelly selling LSU and selling himself, this version, the Brian Kelly version of LSU?
Carter, you want to take that one first?
Well, no, I'm gonna let you go on. I'm curious because you've written a lot on the BK culture fit and a lot of the recruiting stuff he's doing. So I'm interested what you have to say.
I think the way he's selling this, it's like I said last time, Mark, where Brian Kelly, this is all about him kind of reinventing himself while not really calling it too much attention to that. I think he's always had this inside of him, and he wants the smoke. There's a lot of craziness about him calling out Nick Saban this last week, when all he said is he just wanted to beat Nick Saban, and just, this is what he wants to do. He wants to come down here, win multiple national championships, and start something special at LSU. And I think LSU winning 3 national championships, going to 4 with, used car salesman type coaches other than Nick Saban. You have Brian Kelly come in here with this depth of talent, this culture here. You have a new staff coming in, guys who have NFL pedigree, Super Bowl rings. You loaded it up with half national guys, some Notre Dame loyalists, you can say, half local Louisiana guys too. So you've got all your bases covered. I feel like Kelly has really gone into this, and it's selling that we're coming for it all. And there's nothing that LSU cannot grab here. There's no limitations. And with NIL, I know that there's a lot of big things moving behind the scenes as well on that. I know that Kelly is selling that definitely right now on the recruiting trail, and you're going to see a lot of progress with that as well. I think Kelly's selling the full package. He's selling, we're going to take on Saban, Alabama every single year. We're going to have to beat the best to be the best. But at the same time, the conferences and the division landscape, that whole thing is changing.
Right.
We might be able to lose to Saban and still make it to the SEC title game. So there's no fear of that type of thing. I think Kelly finally has the gloves off recruiting-wise, the gloves off resources-wise. He's finally at a school where he feels free, and I think you're seeing that on the recruiting trail. It's all about maximizing potential right now, and that's what's going to really prove to be the ultimate decider in Kelly being a success recruiting wise, as well as just how he wins these football games. What, can we compete against Alabama in year one? That's what the recruits really want to see, I think, most of all.
Yeah. And, Mark, just from like a national, standpoint, right? I think part of the reason why Brian Kelly has so much intrigue is I still think, obviously we just had the Jimbo Nick story, and that's been the biggest story of the offseason. And it's honestly, one of the biggest college football beefs of all time, really. You have 2 A-listers going at each other like that. But really, I still think we are feeling the ripple effects of how shocking of a move Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly actually made, right? I still think, for people that don't understand college football and don't understand the early signing period, they look at both of those coaches as guys that left their really good football teams before the end of the year. Why would a coach ever do that? Why not just wait till the end of the season? And, if you know college football, you know why they did it. And it's not really, a drastic move. But if you explain that to like just a fan of any sport or just anyone else, they would be like, okay, that still doesn't make sense, right? Because, it's just half your signing class, but you have to do it. You have to leave when you left. So I think part of the reason why Brian Kelly gets so much national media attention and hate is because he and Lincoln Riley, you keep hearing Lincoln Riley's name, all the time. they went from one top 20 program to another. And it's still crazy to think about that even happened. So I think, as far as like Brian Kelly's expectations going into next year, whether or not, someone mentioned SP plus a minute ago, all 9 of LSU's Power 5 games this year are against teams that have a higher SP plus rating than them. So in other words, that is a really strong schedule. Even if that's the case, it doesn't matter because he is going to get chastised unless he wins 9 or 10 games in year one, which, could be unattainable with how difficult things will be. So, as far as like tempering expectations, it's very important if you are an LSU fan to keep in mind the long term, because no matter what happens in year one, it's not going to matter. It's what happens in year 2, year 3, year 4.
Absolutely.
I'll take your top 20 figure, Carter, and size it down to top 6 or 7 in the country and say, we've never seen a coach leave. Usually the progression is you climb the ladder and you get to one of these elite jobs and you either need to get fired and then it's difficult to get to another one, or, you go to the NFL. Otherwise, you stay there, Bob Stoops, 20 years, whatever. If you're that good, you stay there. You're not jumping from elite to elite. Urban Meyer would be the only one I can think of, and there was a year gap in between, so he wasn't leaving directly Florida to go to Ohio State. So this is unprecedented territory.